Welcome to the All Things Performance Podcast, where our goal is to stay hungry, to get better, and to move the meter. My name is Josiah Igano, and whether you're looking to improve physically, to get fed spiritually, or to challenge yourself mentally, we're digging deep to find those gems, and we're going to find them. Let's go. So I am joined here with a good friend of mine, Dr. Gregory Klug, and I call you Greg because we're friends. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Josiah. It's great to be here.
So Greg, for those of you that don't know, Greg is both a composer and a musician, and I know he wears the title of dad and husband. Man, just talk to us real briefly, man, about your background, what you've done, what you're doing, and what your passion is as it relates to music, man.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm from Long Island, New York. My dad is an entrepreneur. He happens to be a landscaper, and I grew up thinking I would go and do likewise and do something entrepreneurial. So I got my bachelor's degree in business, and when I completed that, I had to take a long, hard look at what I wanted to do in my life. And throughout that time, piano had always been a major part of my life, and other like artistic kind of things as well. And so I had to reckon with the fact that I felt like I really needed to be a music creator in my life. So I decided to go to get my master's degree in music theory and composition, which I did. I studied at the University of Northern Colorado. While I was there, I got married, and with my wife Renee's help, I was able to get through the master's degree, and we decided that it was a good thing for me to stay on and get my doctorate. My professors encouraged me to do that. One of my professors took me aside and said, "Hey, you should get a doctorate because it'll help you, and you're in a position to do it." So my wife was for it, and I went ahead and did that. I completed my doctorate in composition, and I got a secondary in piano. And since that time, I graduated in 2012. Since that time, I moved to Phoenix, and I've been here since then in like the education worlds, teaching music theory courses at some of the community colleges. GCU, I spent some time there. Currently, I am at Basis Awatuki. That is a charter school, and it's very close to my house. One of the great perks to that job for me personally is I get to walk to work.
Awesome.
Which is a rare thing in life these days, especially in Phoenix. So that's where I'm at. I'm teaching music theory there. I'm also, the main aspect of that job is actually directing the orchestra. So I happen to be the orchestra director at that school. Still active with musical things, music creation, playing piano, playing for various events, mainly church events nowadays, and just working on my own projects as well. But that's where I'm at with music. And like I mentioned, my wife Renee, we live together and we have 3 kids. So we're just doing life and navigating all the challenges, etc. together.
I hear you, man. I appreciate that. That's hey, from Strong Island, New York, man, to the orchestra theater. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what do you call that? Is it a theater? Is it an auditorium? What is the appropriate name for the room in which orchestras are performed in?
I mean, the concert hall.
The concert hall. There it is.
Yeah.
Let's go, baby. Hey, from Strong Island to the concert hall, baby.
That's right, Strong Island, man. It's awesome too, because growing up in Strong Island, there was a rap group called De La Soul.
Yep.
And they were from, when you say Strong Island, I think of them because they have a track where they're representing Long Island, so they say that. And so when you said that brought me back to those days.
Hey, yes, sir. Let's go. Hey, so a lot of people might be listening to this and saying to themselves, man, what does music have to do with performance, right? It was interesting because I just did an interview the other day with Elvis Andrews, and music is a big part of Elvis's his performance. It's part of his arousal regulation routine. Music is, you and I have had lengthy discussions about how music is so integral in what we do. I have a question for you, and I want you to spend as much time on this as you want.
Sure.
You are a composer, and you are also a musician. You spend a lot of time with music. And as it relates to, performance, right? One of the characteristic traits of top end performers is their creativity. So track with me here. We've all
Yeah.
heard about the law of 10,000 hours. Some may be familiar
Right.
with Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work on, creativity and flow states, and how in order for you to
Right.
even qualify, in order for one to even qualify for being creative, he or she must have spent a lot of time,
Mm-hmm.
decades perhaps, in
Mm-hmm.
their work, right?
Right.
So here's my question. How, in terms of innovation, how
Mm-hmm.
would you, Dr. Klug, how would you counsel, recommend, or challenge somebody to increase their levels of creativity? How do you create, or how do you elicit high levels of innovation? Is it a process that you go through, or is it something that just naturally happens? And I want to spin off from there.
That's an interesting question, and I've got a lot of thoughts about that. Just one of the first things that came to mind is like when I create as a composer, sometimes I don't know what I'm going to do until I start doing it. You know what I mean? Like for example, I sit down at the piano and I'm just messing around. Honestly, I'm just like, what might sound good at the moment, and then once I have something, then it's almost like once I put something out into the world, you know what I mean? Like in this case, sound. Playing notes in the keys, harmonies, melodies, what have you, just basic stuff. Once I get stuff into the world, now I'm hearing it. You know what I'm saying? Like now it's getting into my ears, and now I can judge. I can evaluate. Do I like that? And then I start to roll with it. And I say, no, I don't like that. Let me do something different. And then the more I do, the more I hear, the more I hear, the more I do, and it's a cycle where I can decide what's good. I mean, I imagine that would be analogous to any activity that is creative. I mean, you can probably think of examples of artists or creators where they maybe they had like a perfect image of what they wanted to create beforehand. Like there's myths about Mozart doing that. Like he knew exactly what he wanted to create before he did it. He went and did it, and that's amazing. That can be like miraculous. But there's others like Beethoven and other composers who had to like struggle through the process of creativity. And I think more often that's honestly like the real experience of many creators. And again, I imagine you can probably maybe you could universalize that principle, like do something. I mean, to relate it to sports, I did track in high school, but my brother did wrestling. And there are times when, like, he was. I mean, I watched him in action at his meets. There are times when maybe he was stuck or something and didn't know what to do, and the coach would yell out, like, "Do something!" Like he would like do something, because once you start doing something, then not that I'm a wrestler, but this is me trying to draw an analogy. But it's once you do something, then you can start to improvise what creative thing is going to happen next. But if you're not doing anything, then there's nothing to improvise on, kind of thing. So, I mean, that's the first thought that I had when you posed that question.
I like that. I really like that. You don't know what you're gonna do. You just gotta do. You gotta do something, right? You gotta do something. Do anything. We've heard that before, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just think this is very
Right.
intriguing because when you look at performance, right? Performance is the execution of a specific task or function, and there are
Right.
those individuals who execute at a high level. And when you look at, let's talk about this. Let's talk about Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein said it wasn't that I was smarter than anybody else. It was just that I spent more time with the problems. And so when it comes to innovation, when it comes to being able to create, we're in essence talking about taking, two or three disparate ideas and then putting them together to create something new.
Right.
How hard is that? How hard is that, in your opinion?
That's so interesting. In my opinion, I mean, I tend to be a perfectionist. So when I create something, I'm like not happy with it. You know what I mean? Like I create something and then like, it's good. I want to make something out of this composition, this idea. But then I need to struggle through it, honestly. So for me, sometimes it is extremely difficult. And like I've said before, for some, maybe that's not always the case. And I'll put it this way, just looking at some different piano compositions that I have created, sometimes they seem to write themselves and it feels effortless. I'm like, oh, now I do this, now I do this, and then now I do this. You know what I mean? And I'm engaged in the whole process, and there's definitely a level of focus that's involved there that's required. But other times I don't know what I'm going to do next, and I have to wrestle through it. You know what I mean? And it can be a very titanic, like very, very monumental struggle sometimes. So it depends, but for me, most of the time, if I'm being honest, I would admit that it is very difficult, and there's few things that are more difficult than it. And it's partly because I want to get it the way I want it, and like I said, I'm kind of a perfectionist. So it's also the kind of thing where, again, as a family person, I'm aware that before I get into a composition project, I'm going to be occupied with it in a way that will seclude me. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to be in my own space and like deep in my own space. So I'm aware. I'm aware of that, and I take that into consideration before I start a project. Can I afford to be like mentally absent, like for for a decent amount of time while I'm working on this? That's something I think about.
That's great, man. I think that's such rich insight. I mean, when you look at performance psychology, as you and I have talked about before, some of the major groups of individuals who are studied are athletes, elite level combat forces, and musicians. Those in your arena, and entertainment actors and actresses. We've even talked about the correlation, you and I, of lifespan and these performers, and how they are always perpetually, seemingly so under stress. When it comes to failure, what is your, Dr. Gregory Klug, what is your relationship with failure?
I mean, as a performer, it's kind of, especially as a musical performer, person in the music industry, person trying to make a name for himself as a musician, you have to be comfortable with failure. Like, and I had to cope with it. You know what I mean? Like, because I've sent out a lot of, compositions to like composition competitions, and there are a lot of composers in the world, and they all want the accolade or the honor that I was applying for. You know what I mean? So it's extremely competitive. My grad school professor, as a joke, said that if you go to New York City and open up a phone book, which is, I mean, he's talking about like decades ago, right, when phone books were used. But he said, open up a phone book and call one person, or call 10 people. 1 out of 10 people will be a composer. So the idea is there are so many people trying to be this, trying to be, successful composer, successful musical performer. And that's why like the sound wisdom is like, don't go into it, or go into it knowing, you know what I mean? Don't go into it knowing that it's extremely competitive. And even if you're really good, there's a good chance that no one will notice you. So all that being said, what's my relationship with failure? Yeah, I failed a lot. Like I've sent out, competition things, and I have not won them. But I personally, I have to evaluate myself not by whether other people like give me the honor or the win that I want. It's this thing that, for example, I just composed last year I composed the piano quartet. It's a piece for piano, violin, viola, and cello. And I submitted it by the deadline last year, and heard back about a month ago that I didn't get it. I didn't win. But I love the piece that I wrote. Mm-hmm. So in one sense, I failed. In another sense, I created something that I personally am proud of. So that's part of that's part of my equation. Like, did I do something that is good by my own standards, and that would be good by the standards of the people that taught me? You know what I mean? Like I'm going back to my professors and graduates. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I see it. I know that others may feel differently about it. Like success or failure is measured completely by whether other people at large recognize your abilities and recognize you. Period. Um, I've had to be honest with myself and rewrite that in a way that, yes, I want to get more of that personally, but and I'm working towards that, like always, but at the same time I'm content with myself. I don't see myself as a failure just because I'm not like, I don't have a Grammy, you know what I mean, for a film score. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's kind of how I'm trying to think about it in a healthy, realistic, and just appropriate way.
No, that's some enriching insight, because I feel like you have to. There are some people listening to this and they're like, man, how can you be okay with it? And then there are other people who are listening to this and they're like, exactly. And I really love the point you made prior, in terms of just do something, just do anything, just do something, put it out there, and then this iterative process begins, and then you can shave off the fat and get your work to where you want. In terms of I want you to step outside of yourself for a second and look at Greg Klug when he's about to perform, right? When athletes are about to take the field, the tension in the air is very thick. Some guys, you can set a clock. You can set a clock to when they're going to show up to do X, Y, and Z, and you better not get in their way or you will get run over. I know that for me, particularly when I get ready to speak or when I get ready to teach, I actually have to warn people. I'm like, yo, listen, man, I don't want to be rude, but about 10 to 15 minutes before showtime, or before we teach, or before we set up, what we're doing, like, I'm going to be in a zone, and I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm going to be very short with you. And because I need to get things done, I need to make sure sound check is good. I need to make sure everything is functioning well. And it can kind of come across as, brash, And so, what do these moments for Gregory Klug look like leading up to a performance? What is your behavior? What is your mindset?
I mean, it's a good question. One of the main performance activities that I have lately is leading my students in an orchestral performer in the concert hall. And, leading up to that, I guess in a sense, I don't personally feel like, how do I say this? I don't want to say I don't feel nervous, but I do feel prepared in those instances. You know what I mean? Because I've spent so much time with them. I've done the dress rehearsal, and I've gotten it to the point where the only thing different is the fact that there's an audience there at that moment. So I've spent so much time in preparation that I feel like at least at this point, when I first started doing it, I didn't feel this way per se. I had to keep more poker face about like maybe nerves or what have you. But now I feel like the years that I've spent like conducting my group on stage, has created like a routine. Like for me, I'm familiar with this routine of practice a lot, do the dress rehearsal, be super comfortable. Now the nights come, and here I am. Now, to be honest, it's relatively low stakes what I do in that situation, because, it's grade school, you know what I mean? So it's not like super high stakes per se. But I guess practically speaking, we can talk about how like the value of preparation, plays a major part in that. Mm-hmm. Now, if I think about what I do when I perform, like in church or in a recital or in one of those kinds of scenarios, that's a situation where I'm probably like the spotlight is on me, period. Like I'm the only one doing something. I'm performing in front of others. In that space, I guess leading up to the performance, I don't have any like rituals. Sometimes what I do is, you know what I'm saying? I just need to like take a few breaths before I literally get out on stage and perform for people. But as far as like my mental space, again, I just try to channel in all the hours of practice that I spent and that I invested into doing that. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, personally, um, it's that's just it. Like I need to spend some time, staying focused the way you described, and like not engaging with other people in depth, and probably just being alone. So that's where I'm at as far as performance,
Awesome,
and that's the
awesome.
best way I can answer your question.
Awesome. So now I'm going to put you on the hot. I thank you. I think that's a very novel way to look at it, and it's just interesting hearing from somebody who like yourself, who's a creative and who thinks about performance differently. I want to put you on the hot seat. You have absolutely no idea that these questions are coming, but
Yeah,
I want you to fill in the blank here. So
sure.
so just so you know, as a little segue, Greg, I bought us about 10 to 15 more extra minutes if you're cool with that, like 1:45 ish your time.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, cool. I just texted my buddy and said I needed a little bit more time because this was going really good, and
Sure.
I don't want to rush it. So fill in the blank. So for a high level performer, this fill in the blank can't happen.
Man, for a high level, how much time do I
Yeah, yeah,
have?
yeah, yeah.
Is it like bam, bam?
No, like what
for,
how
for,
would you fill in how would you fill in that blank? Like you can't have this if you're going to be a high level performer. This cannot
if
happen.
you're a high level performer, um, I mean, you can't have distraction. You can't have distraction, and I think that's coming from me in a situation where I have to be very deliberate about navigating like my life, my personal life, and it's hard for me in the present situation I'm in, to be honest, to have a space where I am not distracted. So you can have distraction, honestly. Like I at this point, like I mentioned, I'm a dad. I have three kids. If you have like, if I have my kids like needing stuff from me while I'm trying to prepare, it's nothing's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like if that's the reality. So I mean, I kind of look forward to the time when I can really like get my skills back up to where they used to be and not have those distractions. But anyway, the one word response to the question you posed would be distraction.
That's awesome. Awesome. So in like fashion, fill in the blank here. To go to the next level, one must do what? We're talking about elite level performances here and high level,
Right.
high level thinking. And if you want to go to the next level, one must do what?
I mean, the first thing that I thought of was have a vision of what you want to do and like work on it. And for me, it's have the vision and love the vision, like create the vision based on what like I want this to happen, and then honestly just do a ton of work to get yourself there and to believe that you can do it. So that's what I would do. Like if I'm working on my piano skills, or if I want to learn how to perform a really challenging piece on the piano, it would be I'm doing this, and literally I'm doing it. Like I'm setting my mind to it once I create the vision for that thing.
Awesome. Awesome. So you have to have vision. You have to have vision.
Yeah, for sure.
So fill in the blank here. The biggest enemy in your life will be blank if you don't control it. What would that blank be as far as the enemy of a high level performer?
The enemy of high level performance. Probably being overly critical of yourself. I
Hmm.
mean, like I said before, I tend to be a perfectionist when I create stuff, but um, there's a point where it can be too much and you can beat yourself down, perhaps. So I would say a literal enemy would be being critical of yourself to the point where maybe you get discouraged, or you start to you start to um, not believe in yourself. You know what I'm saying? As much as you can or should.
That's awesome.
So
When do you? No, that's awesome. That's very ardent right there, and I like the way you put it because I mean for a creative, for any type of high level performer, I think that that's one of the biggest hurdles, is just that self-doubt.
Right.
When do you know, this is an abstract question, but when do you know that the work is done? When do you know that it's finished? When do you know that you are ready?
Man, if I can do it now, like if I can literally, if I'm working on skills, if I can demonstrate at this moment, like easily, and it feels comfortable, it does, and it can make it look easy, whatever I'm working on. You know what I'm saying? If it's a Chopin etude, if it's I don't know, if it's a composition that I'm working on, if I can say, here it is, let me show you this moment, and I'm not feeling stressed about it or anything like that, I'm ready.
That's awesome. You make it look easy, man. You make it look easy, man. so
I mean, getting there is a different question.
yeah. No, that's good, man. I got one more. You're doing beautifully, man. So we got to keep it going here. So this is the last question before I just
Yeah.
before I let you have the mic here as we close. And thank you
Sure.
again, man, for taking the time. This has been really good.
Yeah, my pleasure.
As you look at high level performers, as you look at anywhere from Mozart to Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
What is one trait that you think that all high level performers have? What do you think, or in like fashion, what trait do you believe that they need to have? If you're going to be the best of the best, you need to have this, or all of them have had this in some way, shape, or form.
I mean, there's different words that I could use. I don't know what the best word would be, but the word that came to mind was ego. And because, and again, you can put that in one sense. You can put another word might be believing in yourself. You know what I mean? I think there's a way to have like belief in yourself in a way that doesn't translate to the other kinds of connotations that go along with egotism, etc. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But when I think of when you mentioned Mozart, like he believed, like he knows that he can be amazing, and he has that belief, that he can be amazing, and Beethoven did too, and I think any great composer you can name, and for that matter, any performer that you can name, that is like a high level, performer, like they've really believed in themselves, and you know what I'm saying, like they really had a high opinion of themselves, and like I said, I think there's a way to have that view without having like an arrogant attitude and stuff like that. Speaking of sports, I was just recently listening to Evander Holyfield, and he was being interviewed on Mike Tyson's podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and he was like, "I don't have an ego. My mom beat the ego out of me," and and I was just laughing when I heard him share about that, but also having a ton of respect for him, because like he believes that he could be heavyweight champion of the world, but he didn't have this mindset of like taking like the personal attacks that Mike Tyson would level against him, you know what I mean, when they were building up to their fight, in a way that he didn't let that stuff get inside his head.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And not having an ego in that sense was good, because he was like, oh, you're going to personally attack me. I mean, he wasn't bothered by it, because he didn't feel like that it didn't cause him to retaliate. So he had this humility and this confidence. So there's the golden ticket. Like, if you can have both, if you can have that humility and like this self-confidence, that would be not just a high-level performer, that would be like a high-level performer and an awesome role model, to be honest.
Well said.
And so,
Well said, man. Well said, man. That was awesome. I'm not gonna even attempt to add to that. But what I want to do now is I want you to just share with the listeners of this podcast. This is all things performance, and one of the things that we want to do is we want to just share with people ideas, thought processes, insights from people who are anywhere from strength conditioning professionals to psychologists to people who work in ministry, applied functional neurology and otherwise, and even in the domain that you've shared with us so eloquently today in music. Are there any thoughts that you have that you can't shake, or is there anything on your heart that you just want to share with everybody today, just in regards to your world, right? Your world of music.
So specifically, anything you said that I can't shake, meaning like
what thoughts?
Something that bothers me.
Yeah, what thoughts, right? Just keep coming back. You just can't shake them, or what things have you been thinking about deeply that you would just like to talk about, or if there's any insights that you have, the floor is yours, man. And you can take it wherever you want.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, this kind of goes back to what we were saying before, how I'm still I'm happy in a sense. Like, I'll put it this way: I'm content with my accomplishments, but in a way, I'm not content because I want to achieve more. So, what's difficult for me is being in a place where I have not yet achieved what I want to achieve in my life as a creator, as a performer, etc. And so, in one sense, that's good because, like, I'm discontent, like I'm not happy. But in another sense, let me put it this way: I'm trying to balance, like, being content in my life and being a family man and being there for my wife and kids and having that and being a role model for them, etc., and teaching them, investing in their lives and being emotionally present. And then there's also my ambitions to achieve, recognition in some fashion as a composer, as a creator. So I need to balance those things, and it's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's not easy. So, I guess it's just when it comes, yeah. It's difficult to balance those things, but I do the best I can.
Yeah. No, and I think the just feeling what you're saying and hearing what you're saying, I think is very commonplace in a lot of high level performers. I mean, what you just shared with us is commonplace with many high level performers. It's one of those things whereby, it's not because you're discontented in life. It's just that you are reaching for something greater, and that is your desire to elicit the best version of yourself that you can possibly garner. And so I feel it, man. I feel it. I sense it, and I go through the same through the same process, and I feel the exact same way. It's one of those things where I think I was on the phone earlier with one of my mentors, and he was sharing. I think the Shack. It was like a Shack documentary that had just come out, and how he had a very real moment in which this high level performer, this individual that was bigger than life, had these dare I say, just regretful moments that, hey, you know what, I wasn't there for my family, not because he was a bad dad, because Shaq is an amazing person, but because of the life of this performer. It was just like, I had to go to this event, to that event, to this game, to this event, to this signing, to this commercial, and the life took him away from being present. And with that said, we haven't even talked about his tradecraft, practice, getting better, performing. We haven't even talked about that. We're just talking about the very responsibilities that he has. So just hearing you share, I think, is a sentiment that many people feel. I feel it. Having this balance that doesn't seem to ever exist, reaching because you can do better. Not in a condescending or arrogant way, but reaching because you can do better. You have more to give, and that, my friend, is a sign of life, man. And so, thank you for being real with us right there, man.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that, and it is real. I mean, that's straight from my heart, and that's me, like, being forthright about just my situation. Like, can I be content? You know what I mean? Even though I'm really wanting to do more. But I think when all's said and done, I would have less regrets, or fewer regrets, if I remained committed to my family and remained emotionally present with my family, than if I didn't do that and just focused on my craft. You know what I mean? Like if I was just selfish and focused on like my own craft and trying to be as good as I can be, trying to be excellent, and as you know, and try to actualize my potential as a composer, as a performer, and just focusing on that to the exclusion of the other things that are important, I think I would have more regret in that situation. You know what I mean? Like at the end of my life, and that's something that I think is worthwhile to do. Imagine yourself at the end of your life. You know, I've done this, and what do you want to be able to say about your life? And for me, having a good legacy for my family is very, very important. So, and probably equally important as the accomplishments that I want to make. You know what I mean, professionally speaking.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Gregory Klug, thank you for blessing us, man, with your words, man. That was very insightful, very enriching. I can't wait to go back and listen to it.